Hi kiddos, this is the feedback video for Spiral 4. We'll start with combining functions, which will be graded on your next spiral. First things first, we had to find AB of 2. Most everybody got the first part of this right, which is finding A of 2. We use the function A. 3 times 2 plus 1 is going to be 7. And we got to find B of 2, which is 2 plus 2 squared. 2 squared is going to be 4. 2 plus 4 is going to be 6. And as I said, almost everybody got that right, or maybe there was a small error in calculating one of those values. The part that ended up being a problem was not reading what the problem is asking you to do. So if you've got AB of 2, what that means is A of 2 multiplied by B of 2. And I saw a lot of A plus B instead of A times B here. So in this case, if we're looking for multiplying these two, 7 times 6 would be 42. At that point, you'd be done. This is just asking you to find each of those values and then to multiply them together. For number 9, again, this was the most incorrect problem on the spiral. And I think that's just because we're really having trouble kind of getting our minds around this. This is asking you to find the inverse of A of x. So finding the inverse. I know whenever I see the word inverse, I need to flip my x and y. So let's write that equation. Instead of A of x, I'm going to use y. Y equals 3x plus 1. When I switch my x and my y around, we end up with x is equal to 3y plus 1. Now I've got a minus 1 to both sides. We get x minus 1 is equal to 3y, and then we've got to divide both sides by 3. And that leaves me with y is equal to x minus 1 over 3. At this point, you're done. That's the inverse function of this. Some of you are using a shortcut. That's okay, but you got to be really careful with setting up the fractions. And more often than not, I see people try to use a shortcut and using it wrong. In terms of noticing that these are the opposite. Plus becomes minus, times becomes divide. You just got to be careful of the order for that. For number 10, there were two types of mistakes that I saw a lot while grading these. The first is not understanding what this meant for 3w inverse of 1. And the second is not understanding what the numbers in front meant. First thing I'm going to do is to find each of these things. So b of 3, which is going to be 2 plus 3 squared. I forgot my plus in there, which is 11. Second thing is going to be m of negative 1. I believe m is my graph. And at negative 1, we have a height of positive 1. So m of negative 1 is positive 1. And then we need w inverse of 1. That's the one that people tended to not know what to do. That means look at my table, which is w, and I'm going to find the output that's equal to 1. Inverses look for outputs, and my answer is going to be the input. So we're going the opposite direction with an inverse function. So as I said, that was the first challenge that people tended to have. The second was not knowing what to do then. So 2b of 3 literally just means 2 times b of 3, which is 11. 3m of negative 1 means 3 times m of 1, or m of negative 1, which is 1. And then we've got 3 times w inverse of 1, which we found was 4. So once we get those, we're plugging these in with these coefficients. And that's going to give us 22 plus 3 plus 12, which comes out to be 37. For the other feedback section this week, we've got transforming functions, although I guess there are sections of functions on here that doesn't really make sense as a word to use for this. In general, the part that went best was the describing with words, although I was a little bit picky as far as what I was looking for. And there were a couple things that I noticed as far as some common mistakes. The first thing that generally people did okay with is identifying that this is going sliding to the left. What I'd like you to say, besides just sliding or sliding to the left, is sliding to the left by 5 units. So you need the type of motion, the direction, and the amount in order to get credit for this. The other thing that's happening is a vertical stretch. I can tell that's what's happening because this is getting both lower and higher. I can also look at vertically, this thing used to be, looks like 5 units tall. And now, if I look at this, going from -2 up to 8 is 10 units tall. So what we're going to say is that this is a stretch. And I'm in blue, so I'll make this red so it keeps the same order. And it's a vertical stretch. And we're multiplying the entire height by 2, so I'm just going to say times 2. That's what you need in order to get full credit for describing a transformation with words. Interestingly, a lot of you did really well going from words to the function rule, and generally the ones who got confused, it was because you looked at this, you didn't know what was going on. This is just every possible thing you could use to describe this. We're not going to use all of these. In fact, we're not going to use many of these. You need to know that the slide left 5 is going to make use of subtracting on the inside, and that we use the opposite value, so that'd be x plus 5. You also need to know that this is going to be a function of f, and finally, that the stretch vertically by 2 is going to be that a term out front. So your final answer for this is going to be 2 times f of the quantity x plus 5. The last piece of this asks you to go backwards. So starting from an equation, describe the transformations that are happening. And there are 2. One of them is kind of hard to see. X minus 6 is going to be right 6. And then if we have the negative, that's going to be a vertical flip. I also would have accepted a vertical stretch of -1. That means the same thing. In terms of drawing this thing, I'm going to do the right 6 part first, and I'm going to do that in a lighter blue just so we can kind of see what's going on here. The first point I'll move is that guy down there. If I'm going right 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this upper guy is going to go like there, and then the bottom of the parabola part of the parabola is going to go there, and then the top part's going to be up there. So the general shape after sliding would be something like this. In order to flip this over the x-axis, which is a vertical flip, each point is going to be reflected over the x-axis. And if it's on the x-axis, it's just going to sit there. So if we're 4 up, we're going to be 4 down. We've got the angle part and the parabola. Oh, I can't talk today. And the parabola part. And that's about it as far as that. A lot of people didn't sketch that. You might not have seen the sketch the graph. I really can't talk. Sketch the graph writing is part of this. A lot of people didn't see the negative or just talked about the vertical flip and didn't talk about going right 6. But the biggest problem that I saw in this section tended to be not using numbers to describe what was happening. That's it.